Hi everyone, so we're about to start our next unit of content and it's all about data. And it's a lot of it is stuff you've already seen before, but you may not quite remember. Okay, so first topic we're going to talk about are measures of central tendency. Now you may not recognize those words, but what we're talking about when we're talking about that are things that measure the center of data. So mean, mode, median, and you would have certainly heard those before. So just a reminder that mean just means the average of something. Now you may not have seen this little equation before. X bar, which is X with the little bar over the top, is the way we write the mean. X bar means the mean. So mean, and this little back to front E kind of thing means sum. So you're going to see me using that a lot because that's a mathematical terms we need to use. Sum of X over N. So the mode, most occurring score, one that happens the most, and the median is the score in the middle. So to find that, everything has to be in order first, and then we can use this little formula, which you also need to learn to find the median position. Now, please note that is not the median data item, it is the position where the data item is. So we'll do some examples with that. I've also included here this information which shows you how to calculate this stuff on your graphics calculator. It is important that you are able to do this because it is going to be required in your exam. Now, it's also got here in this little bit, change the settings, and some of you may never have used this before. So F1 and F6 is how you do that. You want a graph type, histogram, and when you get to this bit, it will say X list. You want it to say list 1, and this will say frequency, and you want it to say list 2. It's not hard, it just takes a bit of practice, so don't leave that to the last minute. Make sure you know how to do that and get help from me in class if you need to. Okay, so here is a little snippet from the textbook which just says what I've already told you. Mode, most occurring, mean, or when are these most useful? So this is important information. So the mode is the score most likely to occur. It's the only measure of central tendency that is going to help you when you've got data that's not numeric. So if it might be ice cream flavors or something like that, it's the one you're going to use in that situation. The mean is commonly used a lot. You would have seen it used a lot. So it's done when you're performing calculations, where data is evenly spread, it's a good choice. Median is more useful when data is unevenly spread. So that means you've got a lot of your data on one side and maybe a few on the other side. So maybe numbers of children, it's suggested here. Well, numbers of children, it's talking about that when you're working with discrete data. So think back to term 1, the difference between continuous and discrete. Continuous can take any value within a range, such as height, weight, age, whereas discrete can only take certain numbers, like number of people. Remember, we can't have part of a person. You can't have half of a lounge, things like that. So you've got to make sure you're thinking about the right type. So mean for continuous data, median for discrete data. All right, so hopefully that's a quick reminder. None of that should be too new to you. So I'm going to have a go at doing a couple of exercises. So here's one. The ages at which a group of mothers had their first child are shown below. Okay, so it's asking us to find the mode, mean, median of the ages, and what was the typical age at which this group had their first child. So you're going to have to determine which is the most appropriate one. So the very first thing I'm going to do is rewrite the data in order, ascending order. Now, you don't actually need to do this to find the mean, of course, or even the mode, although it can help with finding the mode, but you definitely need to do this to find the median. So I'm just going to do it at the start and I'll use that for all of it. So the mode. The mode is the most occurring. So if we have a look at that, 28 is the one that occurs the most. So our mode in this case is 28. Our mean. Now, write the formula every time. X bar equals the sum of X over N. X are the data scores that you've got, the individual bits of data, and N are the number of data items that you've got. So it's just finding the average. You know how to do that, but you might not have set it out like this before. So this is just all of the different values, which I know you know how to do, added up, divided by how many we've got, and we've got 12 data items. So 335 over 12, find the average. So 27.9166. Now remember, that is in years, and I'm going to round that to something a bit more useful. 27.9 years. You could of course convert the 0.9 to months, but it's not really necessary for right now, so I'm not going to. Our median, use that formula to find that n plus 1 over 2 score. So it's telling you which one is the median, this formula. So we've got 12 data items, which means we want the 6.5th position. And when you've got an even number of data like we've got here, the item we actually want is going to fall in between the two. So that means we need to find the average of the 6th and the 7th, which means it's actually going to fall in here. Our median is going to fall in between the 6th position and the 7th position. So we are going to have to, so the 6.5th score in this case equals the average of the 6th and the 7th. Oops, that one should be a 28. Just fix that up. Over 2, 27.5 years. Okay, so they're the three things we were asked to find. Then we were asked, what was the typical age at which this group had their first child? Now, age is continuous, so we are going to use mean as we have continuous data. You can see we've got decimals there and they work fine. So we're going to say the typical age, therefore, is 27.9 years because that's the most appropriate in this case. Okay, so let's continue with the next one. So we've got some information here, and this time we're working with a frequency table rather than just a set of data individual data like we had in the first example. So we've got find the mean, median and mode of the following test scores, and we've got a little frequency table that we've been given, and then we also need to find the typical test score. So when we're working with a frequency table, we're going to use a slightly different formula for the mean. So when we're working with a frequency table, as we are here, the mean equals the sum of fx over the sum of f. Now f means frequency, x means the data items. So it's easiest if we rework this table to be able to do this. So when you've got it like this, set it out in a different way. So I'm going to set it out in vertical columns rather than rows of data like it's got here. So the first two are simply going to be rewriting the information we were given. So our score first, our frequency, then I want a column that tells me what fx is, and then I want another one for cumulative frequency, but we'll talk about that one in a minute. Whoa, that's a terrible line. In a minute. Okay. So, see, I'm just setting up a little table here. So the very first thing I'm going to do is write everything out. So I'm simply, at this point, copying the data that I've already got down. Nothing more than that. 1... Obviously your columns don't have to be quite as wide as I've made mine. They've gone a bit crazy. So, fx, where does that come from? It is literally f times x. So I'll write the first one out. It's going to be frequency of 1 times score of 0 for the first one. So our first value is going to be 0. So it comes from here. The next one, 4 times 1. So frequency of 4 times score of 1 gives us 4, and etc. You carry on like that. There is no need for you to write that information down. I simply wrote it there for you guys to help you understand where it's come from. So don't feel like you need to do that, but do if you want to. Okay, so there's a couple of other things I'm going to do here. So I've got my fx's. Now the mean formula wants sum of fx, so I need to total those up. Sum of fx, so if I add all of those together, I'm going to get 441. And I also want sum of f, which means I'm going to total this column as well, 81. Okay, now I've got enough to calculate my mean. So mean equals sum of fx over sum of f. So I can substitute that information straight into my formula, 5.4. Now, mode. So when you're working with mode with frequency columns, use that frequency column to find out which one is the highest. So you're going to look at that column and you're going to decide which is the highest number. So in this case, our mode is going to be this one, 6. 15 is the highest number in that column, so 6 is our mode. It occurs the most occurring. Okay, median. So formula is the same, but I'm going to add another column to this, and I'm going to add a cumulative frequency column. Now we did cumulative frequency before in a previous term, and we really need this for the median. If you do this here, it's going to make finding the median much easier. So reminder that cumulative frequency is one total added to the next to the next. So 1 is our first one. Frequency of the first one is 1, cumulative frequency of the first one is 1. So they're connected together. So it's frequency plus the next frequency, total frequency plus the next frequency. So our total frequency now is 1, plus I'm going to add this 4 to it. So my cumulative frequency here is 5. And the next one is going to become 5 plus my frequency from here, which is 6, obviously, giving me a total of 11. And you keep going on that way. So none of this should be new. We've done this before. That's just a reminder about what you need to do. Now, when you get to the end, this is the total. There's no need to add it up because cumulative frequency adds it up as you're going. If this does not match this, at this point you need to stop and go back because there's a problem. So that is what you're going to use for your n this time. So that is what goes here as well. So we've got 81 plus 1 over 2. So that means our 41st score is our median. Now we need to go and find that. You're also going to use the cumulative frequency column to do that. So up to here, there's 38 scores. So between here and here are 39, the 39th score, the 40th score, the 41st score, etc. So where it's going to appear is somewhere in that section because the total that's here is to the end of that section. So that means it's in the 6th row, so our median equals 6. Okay. Part B says, what is the typical score? Now we're working with discrete data here. Our information, well, there's no decimals or anything. There's only certain values that are included. So our typical score in this case is the median, and that is going to be 6. I'm going to stop the recording there. In fact, there's nothing more to come. There's more stuff on the graphics calculator. Give it a try and then do these examples as well that are set here. See you in class.